The Beautiful Seabed. Once upon a time, there was a bold and beautiful pirate called Brimstone Kate. She sailed the seas from the iceberg straits of the frozen north to the steamy waters of the Dandoon Delta, striking fear into all she came across. She soon became the wealthiest, most notorious pirate captain of them all, with a fortune in treasure, which she kept under her bed in her cabin. After a while, this became a problem, because her bed wasn't big enough, and sleeping on top of piles of pearls and gold pieces and awkwardly shaped treasure of all kinds was extremely uncomfortable. So, Brimstone Kate put into the sleepy little fishing town of Harbour Heights and went in search of a blacksmith. She found one hard at work, making a lamp for the lighthouse that was at the time being built at Cyclops Point, and persuaded him to stop what he was doing to make her a new bed. Now, because he was a clever blacksmith, and because he was being paid by the hour, he made sure that he took a very long time over Brimstone Kate's bed. This meant that by the time he had finished the bed, it was the most ornate, beautifully made bed that anyone had ever seen. Brimstone Kate was delighted with it, even if it had been extremely expensive and caused her crew no end of trouble as they'd struggled to get it into her cabin. She was able to store her treasure neatly underneath it, and even had space for several pairs of shoes and a cutlass or two. Unfortunately, the blacksmith had taken so long making the beautiful seabed that he hadn't got round to finishing the lamp on the Cyclops Point lighthouse, and not long after, Brimstone Kate's ship ran into the rocks outside Harbour Heights and sank. Nothing was heard of Brimstone Kate from that day forth, although there were rumours that she had somehow managed to escape with her treasure, and had returned to Harbour Heights, where she married the handsome lighthouse keeper of the brand new Cyclops Point lighthouse, and had a daughter named Molly. Chapter 3. Headmaster's Comments. We will consider the incident with the Science Master's trousers closed, as long as no repetition occurs. Theodore has apologized. Hugo Pepper opened one eye, then the other. He looked around. He was lying in the middle of an enormous wrought-iron bed, his head sunk deep into a soft, downy pillow. Above him, iron branches, which reached almost to the ceiling, curled and crisscrossed, each one covered in intricate furling leaves and delicately wrought fruits. At the foot of the bed, through the curving ironwork, he could glimpse daylight streaming in through the shutters of a little window. The bed felt warm and soft after the hard, padded bench of the strange sled. Hugo rolled over, sank his face into the downy pillow and breathed in its soft scent of sea jasmine and briny lavender. As he did so, he pictured Harvey and Sarvy's faces when they had told him the story of how they had found him, a story he would never have been told at all if he hadn't stumbled across the strange battered sled in the milking shed, the sled that had belonged to his real parents. To Hugo, though, Harvey and Sarvy would always be his parents, because it was they who had raised him, teaching him about reindeer herding and cheese-making and the ways of the frozen north. They loved him, their gift from the snow giants, as they called him, and he loved them. He could happily have stayed with them forever in the forests of the frozen north, and would have, had it not been for the mysterious compass of the heart. Hugo's own heart had started thumping the moment he had seen it in the gloom of the milking shed. It was round and shiny and situated just next to a lever with start-stop embossed at its base. The lever was one of 3 levers which were mounted in a line on a brass panel at the front of the sled. The other 2 levers were marked high and low, and beneath all three the words Crane & Sons Aeronautical Snow Chariot Mark II were stamped in worn letters. Intriguing as this all was, it wasn't enough to start Hugo's heart thumping like a snow rabbit on thin ice. No, it was the sight of the round, shiny compass of the heart that did that. From the moment Hugo saw the destination needle and read the words on the dial, he knew exactly what he had to do. Of course, Harvey and Sarvy were shocked when he told them, but they loved him and still felt guilty that they had neither told Hugo about his real parents or tried to find out more about them. So, in the end, They agreed to help him get the aeronautical snow chariot working again. Sarvi repaired the silk balloon, Harvey cleaned the little steam engine as best he could and greased its propeller. Hugo gathered logs in the ice forest for the little boiler and thawed them out. It wasn't long before everything was ready. Hugo turned over in the enormous bed and stared up at the ceiling. Leaving Harvey and Sarvi and his home in the frozen north had been hard, and tears came to his eyes just thinking about it. But he had to. He curled up into a tight ball as he remembered climbing into the snow chariot, pulling his blanket round his shoulders, the very one his real parents had wrapped him in, and pushing the first lever to start. The chariot's steam engine had rumbled and wheezed, and the patchwork balloon had filled with hot air. Slowly, unsteadily, the chariot had risen up from the ground as Harvey and Sarvi waved, scalding tears streaming down their cheeks. Hugo had peered down at the compass of the heart. The destination needle was fixed on the frozen north. With trembling fingers, he turned the small dial round, past the exotic east, past the sunny south, past the wild west, and on to the word on the dial that had made his heart thump so when he had first read it. The snow chariot gave a lurch forward and rose higher in the sky. It gained speed steadily and was soon leaving the ice forests of the frozen north far behind, its compass set on the word home. High over the jagged peaks of ice mountains, Hugo flew in the strange aeronautical snow chariot, its engine wheezing and spluttering and the patched silk balloon billowing overhead. Soon the snow sheets gave way to the vast expanse of icy oceans that seemed to stretch on forever. On the third day, by which time Hugo had finished the last of his cheese and was stiff and cold and wishing he was back in his warm, comfortable cabin with Harvey and Sarvi, he almost gave up. He stared at the compass of the heart. One turn of the dial to the frozen north, and he could return. But then he would never find out anything about his real parents, who they were, what they did, or anything about the place they called home. Hugo gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and pulled his blanket tightly around him. He wasn't going to give up. Just then there was a knock on the door, and a head poked round into the bedroom. It belonged to an old lady with green spectacles and a mass of bronze-coloured hair done up in buns and coils. "I see you're awake, young man," she smiled at Hugo. "Slept well, I hope?" "You should have. After all, this is the beautiful seabed that once belonged to Brimstone Kate the pirate. Daisy and I found it at the bottom of the harbour. Had a terrible job getting it back to the shop, I can tell you." "Oh, Lily, the young man doesn't want to know all that." A second head appeared round the door. "Here, I bought you up a cup of Camomile special pick-me-up tea. It'll do you the world of good. I'm Daisy Neptune, and this is my sister Lily. She's the talkative one," she added with a little laugh. "Always has been, ever since we were tiddlers." "I'm Hugo," said Hugo, sitting up in bed. "Hugo Pepper." There were two gasps, followed by the sound of a full teacup smashing on the floor.
Shoulder bone shake hold and take hold. Somebody should take you